Well, good evening. I'm Mason Knight, and welcome to the Psychic Coffee Shop. And of course, tonight we got us joining is Judi Miller with her new book, Perfect. Um, Techie Joe will be along in a minute. He's running late like normal, but that's okay. So, tell us about your journey to becoming an author.
I never really started off as an author. I actually started my career as a CPA or a certified public accountant. And this experience just happened upon me, and I feel like I needed to share it with the world.
Yeah. So, it's a lot different going from the CPA world. What type of CPA were you?
Basically, I was a CPA in public accounting, and then I went into finance for a healthcare company for 20 years.
Oh, goodness. So, you got to see a lot of growth there.
Absolutely. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah. I always have fun with CPAs because they last about 2 years for me, and I start out with a list of these are actual business expenses.
Well, they do say creative accountants go to jail. So,
Yeah, but 50 pounds of salt, they're looking at me like, how's that a business expense? Come to one of my rituals, you'll see why we use 50 pounds in a year.
oh, now this sounds interesting.
Sharon. So tell us about the book, darling.
Sure. So before I jump into the book, I'd like to ask you and your listeners a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Oh, most definitely.
I see we have an addition.
Hello, sorry I'm running late.
Hi. So have you ever felt different, like you didn't belong?
Continuously.
Or maybe you felt incomplete, always searching for someone or something to make you feel whole?
Oh, yeah.
Or if you were like me, maybe you felt unworthy, always having to prove yourself over and over again.
Up until
Now,
Brene Brown.
she's written a lot of great books, but the reason I ask you these questions and I ask your listeners these questions is because these feelings have literally plagued me for most of my life. But I found a way to let them go, really experience true freedom and happiness. And that's really the reason why I wrote Perfect. So you asked me what the book was about. So people ask me what the book is about, and I say it's about love, forgiveness, and transformation. But what does forgiveness actually mean? So there are so many different definitions of forgiveness, but for me, it's really simple. It's to forego or to let go of. So painful and unwanted events happen to all of us, but we could either experience it once or we could play it over and over again, hundreds, even thousands of times until literally it becomes stuck in our bodies. And forgiveness is about letting go of those stories and those pains so we could literally just move forward and experience freedom and happiness. So can I jump into the story now?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So like many of you, I had fears as a child. I was afraid of drowning and I was terrified of the dark. And you might know what that terror feels like when somebody jumps out in front of you and your heart begins to race and your senses are on full alert. I think for most people, those sensations really just last a couple of seconds. But for some people like myself, it could literally last for hours. So as a child, night after night, I could literally sense and feel different energies all around me. And I didn't know if they were there to help me or to harm me. I would literally crawl into bed every night and pull the covers over my head, and I would recite the Lord's Prayer over and over again, begging for these spirits to go away until literally I would just fall asleep exhausted. And this was my ritual night after night. And I mentioned that I started my career as a CPA. So, in my 20s, I still had these fears, and I was going to work during the day, and at night I was crawling back into bed and terrified of what I couldn't explain. And then I got married and had kids. And in the exhaustion of commuting 3 hours a day for work, working 40 to 50 hours a week, everything stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But then my kids grew up and the house became silent. And in that silence, everything returned. The spirits, the energies, the subtle whispers. People ask me, what does it feel like? It feels like if somebody's literally standing behind me, or if there's someone looking at me from across the room. I would wake up petrified at night, clutching at my husband, and soon we both began to lose sleep. So, Asen, around this time, I started to bleed uncontrollably month after month, and I went to see my doctor, and she said that I needed a hysterectomy. And I'd worked in the healthcare industry, so modern medicine was something I totally trusted, but I was terrified of this, and it felt like the same terror that I felt at night, and the same terror that returned to me as an adult. So a friend of mine suggested that I read a book called Light Emerging. I don't know if you've heard of the book. It's by Barbara Brennan. Barbara was a former NASA physicist, and she studied the human energy field. And based on what she learned, she was actually able to heal people with her hands. So here I was, days before my surgery, still not sure whether or not I wanted to go through it. And I found myself Googling healers near me. And as I sat across from my healer for that very first time, I literally heard the click of a lock, like everything was locking into place. And at the time, I didn't know the role that my healer would play in my family's history, but she helped me heal from my surgery. And then in the following months, she helped me explore the fears that I had, especially the fear of the dark. We looked at, was there anything from my childhood experiences that might have triggered it, but nothing came to light. So we started to look at past lives. Was there anything from past life that could potentially have carried forward into this lifetime?
Cell
And
memory.
yeah, and she introduced me to some amazing people. She introduced me to the work of Dr. Brian Weiss, Dr. Michael Newton, Dolores Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also started talking about our DNA. There are certain things that we inherit from our parents, like the color of our hair, the color of our eyes, the shape of our nose, other physical characteristics. And the science of epigenetics says that not only do we inherit physical characteristics from our parents, but we could actually inherit the trauma and the pain that they went through.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that the book unfolds is that the terror that I felt at night wasn't actually my own. It was actually from somebody who went before me. And the very person that I trusted to heal me actually had a past life connection to my family related to that trauma and that pain.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment of revelation, I could have felt fear, anger, betrayal, but all I felt was love and the perfection of the universe. And that's where the name Perfect came from.
Cool. And we kind of hit some really hard things there that our listeners may not be familiar with, like cell memory, event trauma that continues to be implanted DNA structure. Because there's large debate, nature versus nurture. I really think a lot of it is nature. Like we've got things stored into us, family wise, more than hair color and eye color. But cell memory is a big thing. You named a lot of great researchers. There's a lot of record of it popping up, especially with past lives and phobias and fears occurring. Where did you get into that on your journey? How did you take that when they started talking about, well, you may be something from a past life hitting you?
Well, after doing all this research and working with my healer, nothing came to light. So it was interesting. We were talking about cellular memory, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. So epigenetics, they've done so many different studies about Holocaust victims where they've actually passed down that trauma to their children.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a study that was done not too long ago about mice. They would expose the mice to the smell of cherry blossoms, and then they would gently zap the mice on their feet, for your animal lovers out there. And soon the mice began to be triggered. Whenever they smelled the cherry blossoms, they had this pain and this trauma. But what was really interesting is that the mice's children and their grandchildren was triggered by the smell of cherry blossoms. They would feel the same fear and trauma in their bodies, even though they'd never been shocked and they've never been exposed to the father that was shocked.
Right. And,
Yeah.
I think, we right now need to be looking at that because there's a lot of trauma there, a lot of past traumas that are still being repeated and repeated and repeated. We're seeing so much of history being repeated and repeated.
Mm-hmm.
So who's this book for? And I want more than everyone because everyone should read the book.
So, Asen, because you were talking about trauma, can I just mention one other thing before we jump into who the book is for? One of the things that I found out and I thought was amazing is that every female baby is born with 2 to 3 million of their reproductive eggs at birth.
Mm-hmm.
So the majority of the eggs that they have when they're born. So when your mother experiences trauma as a child, etc., you were actually there on a cellular level. In her body. So I thought that was amazing. I just wanted to share that with you and your listeners.
And it is amazing looking at the things that a mother goes through, and then you see it repeating in their daughters too. Health wise, looking at it from a health perspective. But this goes even deeper into like how we view finances, how, you start seeing patterns over generations of lifestyles, and you think that it's nature, but we've even seen that with children that aren't raised with their natural parents.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing. Um, and I think that there's a lot of things there that have been played off as nature, and it's not. It's DNA structure wise. Here's an example for me being Romney. I'm always looking to move. Like, where's the next move? How are we going to change something? When's the next thing? And it's because looking at that long cultural line, we moved all the way up until the late 40s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. So I believe your question was, who's the book for?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I asked your listeners, have they ever felt different? Have they ever felt unworthy or incomplete? And, for much of my life, that's how I felt. The reason I felt that way is because, I moved to the US when I was very young, and this has nothing to do with race or discrimination. But I didn't look like other people in my neighborhood. I was also born with 11 fingers, and I could sense and feel different energies. So for most of my life, I really tried to hide myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was nothing because I didn't fit in. But what I realized was that in the nothingness, you could be anything, meaning that without the stories, the labels, and the judgments, we could all truly just show up as our true and authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And, I call it the poster note t-shirts. One of these days I'm going to do a home marketing campaign just with poster notes on it. But so you came to the US early. How much was a cultural change there for you?
Well, my parents and my older siblings are also from Trinidad. So I had a family that came from that tradition, and I was also exposed to the tradition in the US. But in Trinidad, there's a very open acceptance of spirituality and things that are not easily explained that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that upbringing, but I was also in an environment where it wasn't acceptable to talk about those things, not from my family, but in my everyday interactions with other people.
Right. And how did you bridge that? Or did that just inline more fear for you?
That's a great point. It really elicited more fear. I truly felt like I had to hide myself from the world, that it wasn't safe to be who I was.
Mm-hmm. Is there where are you headed with this now? Because the book's great, love it, sharing the story. Are you teaching people, what you learned from the research? Are you, just sharing the book right now and going, okay, what's next, spirit? Or
So definitely being guided. I was guided to write the book. So I left my finance job earlier this year, really to just focus on getting the message out there. And the reason it was so important to me is because for so much of my life, as I mentioned, I felt like I didn't belong. And when I look out into the world, I see lots of people who also feel like they don't belong or they're not worthy. And I feel that it's important to share the message. So that's the real reason why I'm out there kind of just sharing the book. In the future, my goal is to work with people. But right now, this is what my focus is on.
cool. So how was it taking that step, turning in that resignation?
It was a little scary, but it felt good. I felt really like I was doing what I was called to do.
And that's a real big thing. Um, at least for me, it was. Like the day I called work and said, I really can't come in. I've got too many appointments and I've got to do this, so I won't be in today. Use vacation time. And the next day, it's like, crap, I ain't going in. Here's my resignation. And that was a big step of faith there. So, how much trauma did it take you?
Well, one of the things that I teach and one of the things that I learned is that we can all have emotions. So, what I mean by that is Jill Bolte Taylor. She is a Harvard neuroscientist that wrote the book My Stroke of Insight. And she says basically you can feel a sensation after an event occurs. And you feel that sensation in your body for 90 seconds. And then after that, it's just a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that nervousness about leaving a career that I knew and worked in for 20 years and going into something that I knew nothing about and learned quite quickly, you could either call it nervousness or anxiety, or you can call it excitement. So it's whatever label you put on those feelings and sensations. And that's what Perfect teaches.
Where did you start at? Where
In
at
terms,
in terms of writing?
so after the events happened, I just started literally, it felt like I was channeling the writing. I just kept writing and writing and writing, and none of it made any sense logically. It was all over the place. So I
Mm-hmm.
really needed to use that accounting and that finance brain to kind of organize it in a fashion
Mm-hmm.
that would really get people interested in reading the story. And one of the things I found interesting was I recently heard that most people only read the first 19 pages of a book.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that Perfect is actually written, it's written, most of it is written like a novel. And I wanted people to be so engaged in the experience and figure out and find out what happened at the end. So it's written purposely like that, to
Mm-hmm.
really get people enticed and to read it towards to the full end.
Right. And it's broken into three different paths, which I thought was interesting.
Mhm. Right. So most of it is written like a novel, because I really felt that by having the readers participate in the experience, their perspective changes. So once your perspective changes, everything changes, your life changes. You can no longer look at life the same way. So that was the purpose of the novel section. And then there are, just a handful of pages called reflections, and they really talk about the different lessons that came out of the experience and how people could actually integrate it into their own life. And
Mm-hmm.
then there are some very simple exercises to really embody the teachings. And the reason I made them simple was on purpose, because I know, and I've been there, we're all so busy and life gets to be hectic. So I purposely made them simple.
Mm-hmm. And I find it's really good to read early in the mornings, especially books of this flavor, of this genre of self development. For me, it's always early, like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Grab the book and read a few pages. As you're enjoying your coffee and stuff. Is
Mhm.
that how you envisioned them? People using it? How did you envision your reader reading it?
So, Asen, that's great how you start off the morning. I think it's important to start off the morning in a very positive, optimistic way, because it really paints a picture for the rest of the day. But I've gotten some interesting emails from readers. They picked up the book, like
Mm-hmm.
you. They tend to read a couple of pages. They literally picked it up, read a couple of pages, and just read it all the way through. And I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten so many emails from people who've actually done that.
Yeah, and that happens, especially when it's really needed.
Mhm. And I do think it's needed.
Yeah,
A needed
especially
message for the
right
world.
now with the time and the place and people really looking, and we're facing traumas that the body hasn't seen in at least 100 years,
Mhm.
since 1918. And a lot of the fear, a lot of the reactions, I don't think it's current times. I think it's cell memory popping back up.
Right. And that's definitely a major part of the story. But I think part of the trauma that we face also are the negative stories that we create in our lives. And we say them over and over to ourselves until they become our reality.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of the pain that we have is the stories that we carry about ourselves, either our interpretations of things people might have said to us or how we've interpreted things. So I think that's also part of the pain that we experience.
So you had talked about the happiness set point, and can you go into that a little bit? And can we change it?
Oh,
Like,
that's
just
that's
kind of.
that's a great question. So a happiness set point. So the forward to my book was written by Marcy Shimoff. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Happy for No Reason, and she coined this word, happiness set point. But basically, what it is, it's our genetic and learned tendency to basically hover around a certain level of happiness. So, for example, when you're not dieting, you get on a scale and you tend to be in that 5 to 10 pound range. That's what the happiness set point is. But basically, the research shows that 50% of our happiness set point is genetic. 10% is our circumstances, like our job, our marital status, our level of wealth, and 40% is actually our thoughts and our stories and our feelings. And what's even more interesting is that we have 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. 95% of them are the same ones we had yesterday, and 80% of them are negative. So we actually have a significant control over our level of happiness if we realize that we can actually control our thoughts as well as our feelings and our labels.
Looking at that, how do you reset that? How do you go in and work on taking that 80% down?
That's a fabulous question. I get stuck in my rut, or I like to say it's like a record player and you keep playing the same story over and over again. And it's very difficult to get out of that rut. We just become creatures of habit. So there's different ways to interrupt the story or the pattern. Some of them you might heard. So as soon as you have a negative thought, you can say, cancel Claire. Some people put rubber bands on their wrist and they snap it so they get it out of their thought and into their body. But one that I love, I actually learned from Tony Robbins many, many years ago. And I just call it zany, crazy thing. So when you get so absorbed in a conversation or an argument with someone, so say, for example, you're arguing with each other and you just want to prove your point. Sometimes you get to the point where you don't even remember what you're arguing about, but you know you have to be right. So what my husband and I do, we came up with this zany, crazy thing. Whenever we're in that situation, we literally just reach over, whoever remembers first, and grabs the other person's nose. So in the process of grabbing the other person's nose, you totally forget what you're arguing about. You start laughing. You can't even remember. You've totally disrupted the pattern. So I encourage people, when they know that they have a certain negative pattern, come up with something crazy and absurd that just makes you laugh. It just disrupts it.
Well, what I find interesting, and you touch about it a little bit in your book too, is when we get to that point of homogeny, and then we start going into, okay, what's next? Where's the shoe falling? Where's the breakup, the divorce, the whatever? The trauma starts going. It's we start hearing what I call the Jaws movie soundtrack. How do you look at it and changing that?
So I think one of the things that's really important is when you get into that cycle, to not start the story. So before we talked about how do you disrupt the story, I think one of the most important things is to not start the story. So as I mentioned before, with Jill Bolte Taylor's book, it takes us 90 seconds to truly feel an emotion. But after that, it's up to us. So I really think that all emotions fall into two categories, either love or fear. And fear is really just a negative contracted story. It could be either we're regretting the past, we're afraid of what's going to happen in the future. And when we drop the fear, all that's left is love. So when we come from a place of love, we can let go of those negative stories. And just to take it a little further, well, how do you come from a place of love? Things like feeling love, compassion, forgiveness, are all different forms of love. And when we express it that way, we can start to let go of those stories.
You say we all create stories, and that becomes our viewpoint, our identity, and all that. How do we recreate them?
So you could choose a more empowering one. One of the things that I love, it's also in the foreword to the book. Angelise Arian is a cultural anthropologist. And she said that it's important to share your story with loving and supportive people, but no more than 3 times, right? So if you share it with them more than 3 times or keep saying the same thing over and over again, it becomes stuck. It becomes our identity. So what they do in these indigenous cultures is when you repeat it more than 3 times, they literally take you over a cliff and dangle you over the cliff until you're willing to let go of the story and see the wisdom in the experience that you had. So you can visualize things like that. I know that's helped me.
Yeah, there's a lot of cliffs in West Virginia.
I know. I was just having a whole thought process. This is way better than like Brene Brown's. So the narrative I'm telling myself, which is usually our check-in with each other, is kind of starting that conversation. I'd much rather dangle you over a cliff. That'd be great.
I want to see a picture of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it would be gorgeous because we're right here next to the gorge. So it would be gorgeous.
As long as you have a camera.
Well,
and no letting go.
Yeah. What's your greatest superpower? What's our greatest superpower?
Stephen Covey wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I
Mhm.
read this probably 20 years ago, but it stuck with me. He said, between stimulus and response is our greatest power. It's our power to choose. And the way that I understand it is between stimulus response, there's a gap. And in that gap, we get to decide. We
Mhm.
get to decide how to react. We could react from a very loving or very fearful way. So I think our greatest superpower is our ability to choose and our ability to decide.
And to react or not react.
Exactly,
Because then
exactly.
you stop the stimulus. It's like, oh no, that's cute. You let it brush by.
Hmm.
You know.
But it's interesting. It's usually when you have a charge in your body about something is
Hmm.
when you can't let it brush by.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I told you, Asen, you had green hair, it would go, poof, right? It wouldn't even bother you because you don't have a charge or a story about green hair or
Right.
you having green hair.
I wouldn't mind it. It's just hard to dress in a wardrobe with it.
Yes, color coordination might be a little challenging.
Yeah. Oh. So why do you think that we store the painful events?
Why do I think we store the painful events? I think we store the painful events because we haven't processed it. We haven't truly experienced, acknowledged the emotion, and it becomes trapped.
Hmm. How do you release that?
So I think part of it is whenever you feel a negative charge about something, take it to the body. Where do you feel it in your body? So some of the comments, about being different, where I used to feel it in my body used to be on my chest. It used to feel like an elephant sitting on my chest and I couldn't breathe. So what I suggest is that you basically acknowledge that feeling. You either put your hand on it, you either squeeze it or mentally visualize it. Acknowledge the feeling and let it flow through you.
Hmm.
Don't attach a label, don't attach a story to it. I have a great example of, I just heard this. Shelley Lufko mentioned it. So we all have different stories or perceptions, right? So it's how we experience the world. So for example, if you saw a man walking down the street, if you were female by yourself, it was late at night, and you saw a man walking down the street, depending on the stories that you have in your body and maybe in the cellular memory, you either say, he's going to hurt me or that man's going to protect me. So our stories really cloud how we see the world.
Hmm. So, in your thinking, in your opinion, how much inland stuff is still affecting us? How
How
much of that
much?
80% of thought is not even our thoughts, but thoughts we came pre-programmed with?
Well, in my situation, that fear and that terror that I had, that I experienced every night, was a cellular memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was significant. And despite all of the work that I tried to do to release it, I needed a very powerful healer to help me.
Mm-hmm. And you do. I mean, because at that point you're working with every cell in your body, because every one
Yeah.
of them has the same copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question, just kind of like riffing on a theme because we seem to keep going there. But on the epigenetics level,
Hmm.
so kind of like taking that all in, so that basically becomes like generation to generation to generation to generation. And from the mice experiment, it would sound like this would start to teach valuable things. Is it that we've just kind of over like the last few generations, like our world changed, but we're still stuck with this bio process that's not really quite geared for the modern world?
I think perhaps in the past, caveman days or earlier, back then, there was a reason for it. It was a way of survival. You know, if your parents learned that certain things needed to be done in order for survival, it got passed down to their children. So we probably don't need to carry all of that with us anymore.
Absolutely.
So looking at it, and let's break it down a little bit. If your grandparents lived through the Depression the hard way, because I don't think there was any easy way, but lived through the Depression the hard way, what memories do you think would have been passed down so early?
And you know, it's interesting because they've done studies with twins. The science of epigenetics, it depends on which tags, epigenomes, are actually triggered or expressed. So it may not be the exact same ones in a set of twins, which is even more interesting, right? One twin we may actually inherit that trauma of, you know, depression, and the other one may not. So I think there's so much to learn still when it comes to that.
Oh yeah, and I think we're still exploring it. I think it's finally we're starting to look at it. We're just now starting to understand what DNA is again, because I think we've already known what it is ages ago, and it's been lost to time. So, you know, you're #1 Amazon books author now, and other than Amazon, where can they get your book at?
So any other leading retailer, it's available. The reason I say Amazon is if they go to my website, which is judimiller.net, when they buy the book, they can actually get 5 free gifts from some of my teachers and my mentors. So when they go to my website, it actually takes them automatically to Amazon, but it gives them the link to get the free 5 gifts as well.
Oh, excellent.
And while they're on my website, I don't know about your listeners, but I love free things. I've always loved free things. So while they're on my website,
we're putting it in the comments, guys, the web address.
If you go onto my website, there's a tab called free ebooks. So I also have a free ebook called Awaken the Creator Within. So that's free as well.
Cool. So tell us about that book, because we've talked about Perfect, and it's a great book. Get out there, read it, put it into action, break some patterns that I, get fuss about all the time. What about Awakening the Creator?
So Awaken the Creator Within is mostly, it's very short. It's about 20, 25 pages. And it's mostly different exercises because we are all energy. We're energetic beings. Everything in the world is energy, just vibrating at different frequencies. The table is made of energy. Our body, our thoughts are made of energy. So it's just different exercises to control our energy. So for example, when I felt stuck in life or I felt like I was stagnated in my career, I often found it was because my energy was stuck and stagnated. I wasn't moving. So one of the exercises is to move because we are energy. Another exercise is to create, for we are the creator. We are a creative life force and we're meant to create. And when we don't create, it does manifest as sickness and illnesses in our bodies. So do things that are creative, and it doesn't have to be an original work of art. It could be singing, dancing, playing an instrument, but it could also be how you dress, how you decorate your house, what food you make for dinner. We all need to express that creativity.
Yeah. And we all need to find that we are that creative force there. So what has been your weirdest healing experience?
My weirdest healing experience. So I didn't go into it in detail, but I worked with the healer to help me heal this fear, right? This cellular memory fear that I actually inherited from someone who went before me. I won't say who, but it's in the book. But the person that caused that trauma was actually my healer in a past life. So this was her opportunity to come back and to heal. So I know that it sounds a little unusual and maybe even uncommon to some listeners who may not understand how all that works, but to really experience that we could never get it wrong. We're always giving the opportunity to heal in this lifetime or in any other, and that we're unconditionally loved and accepted. It wasn't a weird experience, but it was a miraculous experience.
Right. What I was talking about weird is like, did you get shooken over the cliff? For me, I had, water poured through my hands and this was during a healing thing, and water poured through my hands and I burst into flames when it hit the ground, it was a really cool healing thing going on. Did you hit any of that, or did you get into any of those indigenous practices during your journey?
Nothing as exciting as yours. It's definitely not exciting like that. But I was having a horric healing with my healer, basically when you align on your purpose for being and why you're here on Earth. And her dog just went crazy. He was just literally trying to jump onto the healing table with me. And this had never happened before. So there was definitely something happening. So it's not the healing procedure itself. It was just what happened as part of that. That was a little unusual.
Very unusual. Very interesting how animals play a key part in that, though.
Yeah, I think animals have, high sensory perception. They know what's going on.
Oh, yes, they do. Well, darling, thank you for stopping in, and come back and join us, because I know you got at least 2 more books coming.
Well, it was a pleasure being here, and it was a lot of fun.
Good pleasure to with you. Have a great day, darling.
You too. Take care.
Bye, guys. All right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hello, Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
And, yeah, sorry, guys. When we're doing an interview, we didn't want to cut her off or totally mess her up.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult being interviewed, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's fun to finally be able to bring it back.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. That because originally that's a lot of what Psychic Coffee Shop was we had authors in there, coming to interview. So now we're able to bring it back with our new studio and everything. With the upgrade, it's going to make it really easy. Mm-hmm. But hello, darling. How are you? It's nice that you got online.
Sorry, I was running late. If you guys didn't notice, I got a little bit of a haircut. The Psychic Coffee Shop and Barber Shop was open today. And let me just tell you, I have to make that joke at this point because let's see if we can get free razors and shaving cream and all kinds of other stuff if we put in Barber Shop. Because right now we're getting offers for cups and mugs. And I went through 10 messages today. Related to the show, and it was all trying to sell us stuff. And it's like, guys, could you just see the podcast thing? But hello, Jessica. I did want to get through and make sure. Hello, Kathy. I think we're caught up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the interviews are a little bit. It takes a lot.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to do the interviews. It's fun to have guests on. Guys, Joe's got this book. It's a really good book. It's one of actually, it's really detailed. It's really good. I like it. I love the cover. I was trying to figure out how to share the cover and not throw one of the 3 of us off the screen. I think when we do have authors on, I'm going to make their cover our backdrop.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that fucking gorgeous?
But wouldn't it? Well, I would be afraid of changing our backdrop, honey. It may confuse people. Plus, I mean, I don't know. Some authors are really cranky about using their stuff. But yeah, it's not a huge book.
No,
you're not picking up one of those 500-pound self-help books.
No, we started at 9:30. We moved from 9 p.m. to 9:30 because I need my rest.
Oh no, you're fine. No, Kathy, we did have to change times. We were running late for our own show, and it just kept happening. And we're finally okay, let's move it to 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we're still running late, it's I'll move it one more time to 10, and then we're done. We'll just stop it.
Right. And when we pre-schedule shows, we have to be there. It has to start that minute. It's a lot like Blog Talk used to be. I don't miss Blog Talk.
So cool.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Yes, I was getting bushy. It was bad. I couldn't take anymore.
We're starting to look cute.
Well, I kept leaning forward to the camera, and everyone was all I could see of the video was just
one of these days, I'm gonna let that grow out, and then I'm gonna drop some dye on the sucker.
Yeah. You keep threatening that.
Uh-huh. I just haven't figured out what color I want you. I'm thinking blue.
I'll go pink.
Okay.
I'll go pink.
Yeah.
Pinks and grays work in my family, but now like hot pink.
I don't.
Like show them your lighter case. Hot pink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we gotta find a brand for that. I've got to order dye though. But no, ooh, rose gold would be a nice one.
I think I'm already there. Like, come on, guys. Like, if y'all haven't noticed, I'm a wee bit of a redhead.
Yeah, just a little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm waiting another 2 weeks, and then I'm going to go back purple.
Like, and that was a fun thing to learn about oneself. Because let me tell you, if only I'd grown out the beard first before because I used to be clean shaven all the time. And because, like, my facial hair did not even try to come in right until I hit, like, 30. And then a couple of years past that. So, like, 18, 19, 20 years old, I'm wanting to color my hair, and like it all looked like this kind of monochrome brown-ish, kind of like dirty blonde, I think is the technical color name.
Dishwater, I've seen the pictures.
Pardon?
Dishwater is what I call that.
Well, there you go. So I thought, if you bleached it, as did and I will give credit, I gotta say, I can't call myself too dumb. My colorist, because when I went to do that, I went to a colorist. I was like, no, we're not trying this at home. Even she didn't catch it. So she like, bloop, and she just sat there watching the process go, and her eyes just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I'm like, oh God, how bad. And so we rinsed it out, and it like she just had this mortified look on her face before I even got out of the bowl. And I was like, oh God, this is really bad, isn't it? And she's like, well.
You could have just stood in for, Carrot Top.
Yeah, that was Peroxide Pass 1. Peroxide Pass 2 turned me into the Straw Man. Like, it sounded like crunch, crunch, crunch.
Right, and that's where you do a heavy conditioner and let it sit for 30 minutes under a blow dryer. And to let y'all know how many years ago this was back when Eminem had tips, and I thought those were awesome, and I wanted that. Ooh. Oh, well, okay, so Kathy, how do you make that work? Because every time, like, the one time I tried to put peroxide on my hair, nothing was going to cover that. Like, it was flaming carrot top orange. Anything we would have mixed with it, my colorist was like, this is not going to go well. Right.
Like, you are not going to end up with the color you want.
Right.
Well, like, I don't even know where to begin. Oh yeah, well, platinum was what I truly wanted.
Right.
Now with like the landing strip, which is what I call it. It's the landing strip. That's how what I call baldness and he calls overly blonde hair. That's how it works out for me. I don't know how that would look. Like if you're right and like I were to go peroxide it and like color it, like wouldn't I get a true color on that overly blonde area and then like some weird color on everything else?
Yeah, that's why we're not going to peroxide it. We're just going to go right over it.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Emily.
But, I love the deep jade green with dark purple. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I think when I do mine this time, I am going to lighten it first and then put the color on.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you take peroxide really well. Like, it's enough to make you mad. Or it's enough to make me mad.
It's used to it.
Well, true.
Yeah.
Like, I only ever did it once and then ran away. Like, like it no, it was just like, ah, and run.
Right.
Like, no, no. Oh.
Yeah.
See, yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe I just got a really bad colorist, but I ended up spending over $100 and some on that one appointment, which was bad enough.
Right.
Like, and that was like 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no joke.
It's like when I get my hair done, it's a $200 hit.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's why I started doing it at home.
I know. Well, and I've told you to just go do what makes you happy.
Right.
Because I would rather you spend that money and be happy than to not spend it and more miserable.
Right. Well, and you know, when it gets longer, because yes, I ain't going back to the hair salon until it's safe, and no, it ain't safe. You're gonna have to chip in and help here.
Okay.
Yeah.
With what? What am I helping you with?
You're putting on gloves and you're squirting stuff into the back of my hair, especially when
okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm. But no, it's gotten longer. I'm almost to a base of a ponytail. Yeah.
Well, like most of your problem right now is just right in the temple. Is that's not really like, oh yeah, we're gonna shellac it.
Uh-huh.
Of course, then again, you're gonna have me in a bathroom playing with gloves, so I'm just gonna be like, and bend over, and you're gonna be like, not what that's for.
No.
Like, I'm holding chemicals that will explode. Do you want to screw with me right now? I see how that works.
Yeah. But no. Oh. So, it's been a wild weekend, to put it nicely. A lot of things got changed. A lot of things got updated. I had a mega productive span on Sunday, and I wiped out a bunch of crap. Patrons, you have a new video up. Viewers, you have a new video up. Patreon gets it a week ahead of time than our normal YouTubers, and Facebookers. I gotta still put the video up there, but there's a link out there.
Oh, Kathy has some tips. Lunar tides for colors not blue based. Manic Panic for pinks and purples and red.
So we're not even going to deal with Manic Panic.
Yeah, like, I understand what you mean. The color comes out gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But he had the worst time getting it to seal.
Right.
Or, like, to get the excess out. Like, it just wouldn't stop.
Right.
Like, it was gorgeous, though. It looked great.
Yeah, love the color.
We couldn't get it to, like, lock in and chill out.
Right. Like, literally, we have purple pillows.
Well, that's one thing to call them.
What did you call them?
Personally, I said it looked like someone had raped a Smurf.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it did. There was a crime scene on that pillow. It was bad. It was real bad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like, I came in and I was like, are you all right? And you were looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, can you explain my pillow? Like, did you bleed? Like, did you bust an eardrum? Did you, like, what happened?
Uh-huh.
Do you have a nosebleed? Because that was the last time I saw that much, like, red. And that's what it was doing, is it wasn't, like, purple and clearly, or, like, purple and clearly identifiable. It was just this weird, like, dried blood look.
Yeah.
And it was like, ew.
Yeah.
Like, the last time I saw that much was, like, my father having a nosebleed because he had a clotting issue. So it literally, that man had a nosebleed in his sleep. It looked like a crime scene from one end of the bed to the other. Like, I don't know how you survive nosebleeds. Yes.
Yeah, but no. So yeah, I got his head shaved, finally. It's been on my to-do list for about a week.
Ah. Okay. Okay. So lots of research. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But no, we switched over back to my L'Oreal. I love L'Oreal coloring. I've always loved it. I like the older stuff more than this newer stuff, but it's like house paint. I have to literally import it from China the next time I want to paint the walls in this house.
Well, but I'll give the hair color a lot of credit because the only other hair coloring experience I had was after the blonde thing. I went full jet black. Yeah, guys, try to imagine. With a faux hawk. Like the little short faux hawk. Yeah. It was a period of my life, okay? So anyway, so I went jet black, and I know that like I had like staining, like the tops of my ears were so bad. And I've been happy that like the color you're using doesn't stain all that much. Like usually your first couple of showers will knock it out.
Right.
But like when I did the jet black thing, oh my God. Like the tops of my ears were gray for like a month.
Well, see, what you do with that is you take and put a little bit of petroleum jelly on the ears and the lower back of the neck and your temples. And you don't get so much staining.
Yeah, I probably should have asked friends for advice and help. I just did one of those, like, I went to the store and it, like, struck like lightning, and I went, fine, I'll do this. And so I went home and did that. And it was, I don't know, I was in a mood. I dyed my hair jet black, and then I went to the company Christmas party wearing all black. Like, I don't know, I had a goth moment or something. It was weird.
Wow, I think you'd be cool in goth. We discovered that you.
Well, I'm pasty enough. I'm pasty enough.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to paint anything.
Well, no. You look great in mascara. I'm going to try bronzer on you and see what you look like in that.
Alive?
Maybe.
Like, sorry, guys. I'm just Uncle Fester pasty. I'm kind of scary.
No, you're not.
But I'm the reason you get such a great tan. Those 10 minutes standing next to me reflect a lot of extra light, and as long as you keep turning, you get a nice even coat before I turn into a lobster.
Well, true.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I still want to get voodoo and just test that out on you.
Oh, what's this?
Voodoo is a tanning lotion, and for me, it takes me down to a regular complexion with this fire engine rad. So with you, I'm thinking that we'll get that nice coppery look.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be weird. I don't know how I'd deal with that. Like, I've seriously, guys, like, I've never really had a tan. Like, I get less pasty, and I will literally go around like, look, I'm tan! And everyone else is like, that's what I would look like in the hospital near death. And it's like, shut up. I achieved tan. It's better than I started.
No, I'm starting to build a list of after this crap's over what Asim wants to go do, other than go back to the gym. He wants to get his hair dyed. He needs his nails done. And then I think I'm going back to the tanning booth. I didn't get my summer tan at all this year.
I think Emily would look amazing as a redhead. I can see the extra attention she would get. Like, not throwing off, like, she has a great hair color to start with, but I could see her taking a red really well.
Yeah. I think that must have been awesome on her.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So what's on your news feed?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Is anyone's news feed ever saying anything other than COVID? Like, that seems to be my whole news feed anymore. Like, like this nursing home has so many cases, this is going wrong here, this is a problem there, mask mandate problems, school back to school issues, and which, by the way, I was at the grocery store earlier today, and I guess school is going back or something's about to happen because there is no lunch meat.
Right.
Lunch meat's gone. There's no lunch meat.
Mm-hmm.
Kroger apparently can't sell school supplies for crap.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lunch meat.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see that the Postmaster General got the memo of you're going to Congress and they're going to grill you, so you better fix your shit.
Well, or Congress or the House?
The House.
Yeah, because the House is back in session for this because they're like, what the fuck, man? And there's no nice way to say that. Mm-hmm. Is where they're at over everything that's been going on, the jerking of mailboxes, the locking of mailboxes, like
mm-hmm.
It's getting ugly. And then there's this whole thing that happened in North Carolina,
mm-hmm.
in which, what the hell, Trump? So the GOP in North Carolina did a mass mailer mm-hmm. with an included form to request your absentee North Carolina ballot.
Right.
And attached to that is an ad for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's making a lot of news down there. A lot of people are upset about it, if for no other reason than the do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to sit here and complain about mail-in voting, but then I'm going to do a mass mail campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Using, taxpayer funding, I'm sure, one way or another. But we're going to end up using, the United States Postal Service to mass mail this out to request it to Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? And then there's even debate over whether the form's valid because it's actually partially pre-filled for North Carolina. Like, it literally marks the North Carolina box. And there's even questions whether those forms will be valid if used.
Right.
Because it is not supposed to be machine filled.
Right. And what's going to be even more interesting out of all this, and the whole reason for this is they're looking at the largest voter turnout in a century. If mm-hmm. you do the mail-in ballots, really.
Hear you on the gray streaks, Emily. I can understand that one.
They're there. They ain't staying, though. At least for me. I'm not doing this whole aging gracefully. To put it nicely, fuck that.
Yeah. Although I will say I did screw up in college at one point, and I got on a bandwagon with like everyone else on a shampoo and conditioner. And mm-hmm. apparently, I thought I was going gray prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
I really, truly did. I was ready to like suck it up and be like, well, I'm going to be in my mid-20s and have gray hair.
Uh-huh.
Only to find out that it was just a lot of this shampoo conditioner made my hair feel great, but apparently like it was building up a lot of wax.
Mm-hmm.
It was making my hair look gray.
Well, that's why you don detergent at about once a month.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no one told me that. I just freaked. Like, I went through a whole... Well, it didn't, like...
I swear you were raised by wolves.
Hold on now. Yeah, but I can get, beauty queen makeup on and off without a problem. But that's another story for another day. But no, like a friend of mine ungracefully told me, you know that you're going gray. Oh, yeah, that's what I want to hear in my mid-20s. Well, it wasn't even mid-20s. It was pre-mid-20s. I was like, holy crap. No, no. And Raised by Wolves, hello, that's you. Oh, ooh.
Uh-huh.
That's just playing dirty.
No, that's just making it facts. I miss those hairdressers. Like, I haven't had a standard hairdresser since 2004.
I understand. No, and a good hairdresser is worth it. They really are.
But there are some bad ones. I'm sorry. We have gone through the ones that cut with crayon like crayons.
Well, but that's more importantly, like, I like hairdresser, or like, if you're going to deal with a stylist, a hairdresser, whatever you want to call them. One, I typically shoot for someone over 40. Like, their experience, they know what they're doing. If they've managed to make it this long in this field, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And then I start evaluating them by how they look.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm standing there looking at them going, ew,
mm-hmm.
And I mean their hair, like, I don't care if they're bad with makeup or whatever. That's not what I'm there for. But, like, if their hair looks bad, like, y'all run away.
Well, have you noticed that some hairdressers cut everybody's hair the same?
Well, granted, I'm a clipper cut, so I'm easy. But no, I have seen, like, situations, and sometimes it's communal, like a community kind of like locks into a hairstyle, especially among older women. Like, you start hitting that like 70s, 80s range, and there's like one hairstyle for an area.
Right.
And every stylist does it, some better than others. Yeah. Because, like, my grandmother went there. She locked into that, like, old lady helmet hair perm thing. With a color rinse called gunmetal gray. Yeah. The worst thing in the world is she had been using it for so many years, the company discontinued it. And it became like a rare item to find in a beauty store back room. So, like, her last stylist was like, well, let's try this one. And it was a really nice shade. It was like a champagne color. And my grandmother looked great, but she hated it. I never could understand it. Like, it really complimented her and it looked great. And meanwhile, you're not one to talk because you used to go to the woman who fried up your hair because she gave you a perm once a week, and your hair kept coming out blue, purple, or pink. Pick one. Sometimes both, or like two of the above. Like, you're gonna gripe. You're gonna gripe. Like, come on now.
And I don't like that helmet hair that has come out. Like, most of these poor ladies around here, I'd love to sit them down, buzz cut their sides, and tease them a little higher.
Oh, I don't know. I personally like it, like the pixie cut.
Yeah.
Like I find, or I've noticed that a lot of older women look really good with a pixie cut. Like, as long as they're not overly thinning, which I know that's a lot of, like, the super helmet hair is to cover the fact, yeah, you're thinning a little. But no, like the pixie cut, all natural, or like, lightly retouched color. That's a really good look.
Right.
Like,
that's
always a good one.
Well, and for me, up until it gets to here, it's going to look like crap. Like, no matter what we do, we brush it, we comb it, we tease it, we whatever, it's going to look like crap.
The frosting. I know that situation. I'm not going to name any names because I will be murdered. But I know someone who had the experience of, she spent many years in the 80s frosting her hair, only to go in and have her stylist unceremoniously tell her, You don't need frosting anymore. Nature has taken care of it.
Mm-hmm. By the way,
she called it the worst appointment ever. It's like being slapped in the face with, "You're old."
Well, no, but by the way, she has to wait another 2 years for your life insurance policy to kick in.
Do what?
Life insurance. You're still in that waiting period.
Me? What? Huh?
Uh-huh. Another 2 years at least. You can't be murdered.
Oh. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you insured me for a lot.
Just 100,000.
Oh.
It'll cost that much for the funeral.
What?
Come on, we know we have to do the whole ceremonial funeral, put you in a vault, put you in a casket, freeze.
Oh, please. That's only like 25. Now I want to know what you're doing with the other. You're buying an Escalade with the other 75,000, aren't you?
No, I'm buying my retirement package.
Oh, okay.
I.e. an RV.
Oh, okay. I see how that works. Uh-huh. Yeah. That's okay. You keep telling me you'll go first and I'll get diamonds. So I'll just keep feeding you so it's a big old ring.
But no, it's very interesting that, suddenly Postmaster General quickly changes his stance when it's like, ooh, this wasn't received well. This didn't go underneath the radar. Dang.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it was a situation they thought they could control with spend.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really thought they could spend it and everyone would just go, oh, well, okay. Yeah. And it's like, no, that's not, like, it was instantaneously felt. Like, and it's really hard in that situation, especially a conservative situation, to sit there and fight veterans not getting their meds, senior citizens without heart medication, a lot of, and I think it's an underestimation of how prevalently the postal system's used. Like, I think that it's one of those, like, rich people let them eat cake moments.
Right.
Is like, no, you're not understanding.
Right. Well, not only that, but then we have the other side of this that people aren't really talking about, which is our postal workers, which, around 65% of our veterans work for the Postal Service. So when we start cutting hours and cutting benefits and cutting this and cutting that from our postal workers, we're actually cutting it from our veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have, them trying to cut veterans insurance, which pisses me off. And, Trump came out and said, oh, we're not going to do that now. Duh, you're not going to do that ever, you idiot.
Well, and the Medicare Social Security thing, like Medicaid has been in their targets for decades.
Right.
And every year it chips away a little more and a little more and a little more and gets a little more ugly. Right. But no, I think the thing that's gotten me the most, though, in news, though, switching gears a little bit from Postal Service, was an article I saw on WVVA earlier, and I sent you a link to it and forgot the comments wouldn't show.
Right.
So I want to get into a thing real quick. Does anyone here understand what the hell a pharmacist does? Because no one reading that article on WVVA was getting it. Like this, like, so just to start out here on my soapbox, a pharmacist is not a pill counter. Like, that's not their only role. Their only role is not to sit there and be gripey with you because, they need your address, or, for a pharmacy tech to get your address, or to create problems in your life. That's not their role. Like, you do realize they go to school and they're making a crap ton of money if you think that's all they're doing is counting pills. Now, software has helped a lot. Because what's happening right now is the state attorney general for West Virginia has sued Walmart and CVS for their role in the opioid epidemic. Okay.
Go for it. Keep going.
No. Well, like, here's my thing, though, is I think that's very legitimate, and I'm glad they're suing the massive corporation and not the individual pharmacies. Because I have pharmacy friends, from pharmacists to pharmacy tech and, kind of in between. And the situation they've been in with big box retail pharmacy, your, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Kroger, etc., is a lot of those companies basically hire pharmacists because they're legally required to, and then just kind of lock them in with a system that won't let them actually be a pharmacist. Not in a number of ways, in towards of inventory and ordering, inventory control, and then making employment policies in a way that they're skirting along an edge of their professional responsibilities. So it gets very ugly, and I'm glad that they're attacking, or at least hopefully going to really seriously go after big box retail pharmacy, in that, that's where a lot of this comes in at. And a lot of the people reading the story were like, well, it's the doctor's fault for writing the script and the insurance company's problem for paying for it. And that's not what we're talking about. Like, a lot of these people were paying cash. A lot of these doctors didn't know that, okay, you're going from this place, they were doctor shopping. To buy quantity for redistribution. And in many cases, getting all of those scripts filled at like the same pharmacies.
Well, and my problem, and this is actually a reason we left a pharmacy. That is named in this saved, is when pharmacists begin to think they're doctors.
Ooh, to what extent?
Go down with that asshole.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get your pain medicine.
Oh, yeah. And that one I somewhat understood. My biggest problem out of the situation wasn't what he did in terms of having a concern and wanting some verification. Hey, what's going on here, man? Why are you seeing this doctor so far from home?
Right.
That's actually a normal pharmacy thing. My problem with him, and the reason that I got so mad about it, is all you had to do was pick up the phone. Instead, you had like 2 days to get the script filled.
Right.
And you didn't do that. You just looked at it and went, he's really far away from his, like, why are you seeing a doctor here? And then moved on.
Well, not only that,
fill it and, next.
And if you look at your medicines, he would have seen that all of them come from the same place.
Right. And again, I don't have a problem with what he did. I have a big problem with how he did it.
Oh, I have a
was my moment.
No, I have a whole problem with what he did. I have a whole problem with this attorney general. And here's why. Morrissey has done nothing. Nothing.
Oh, no. It's the Morrissey shakedown is what I keep calling it.
Well, he's done nothing for the opioid epidemic. He's done nothing to come after these drugs manufacturers. He's suing over the price of eggs because he's bored.
Well, moreover, it's shakedown money. He is a settlement king. He does not go to trial, which is a lot of West Virginia anymore, and a lot of our legal system as a whole. A lot of things don't go to trial.
Right.
They end up being handled in, mediation and settlements.
Right.
No fault settlements.
To the people.
Pardon?
This suit, none of it is going to go for drug rehab. None of it is going to go for expanded medical facilities. None of this is going to go through pain management.
Right. Right. It's all part of the attorney. It will all end up in the Attorney General slush fund, which is his spend it however I want to
fund.
Yeah.
So no, I don't support this suit. This is the wrong suit to be going after. Suing big box pharmacies? No. What you need to be doing is actually doing something for the people. We have a perfectly good hospital sitting in Fairmont, West Virginia. We have a perfectly good hospital sitting in Bluefield, West Virginia. Both of those could have become drug treatment programs.
Well, my big hope, my true big hope is that Walmart and CVS will not settle.
Mm-hmm.
That's my hope. And that these two massive big box pharmacy or subcomponent of their business is pharmacy, but big box retailers with pharmacies will end up in court having to explain and defend everything they're doing to pharmacy, because it's going to be eye-opening.
Right.
And I think a lot of people would be horrified, as I've been, as people try to explain their experience. Like working a pharmacy tech 60 some hours a week. And a pittance at that. And pharmacists that are so locked down, they can't even see a situation and know exactly what they need to do because their system doesn't allow them.
Right.
They are prevented from being a pharmacist. And I'm hoping they won't settle and that they will try to press to go to court.
Yeah.
Thinking that they'll win and it will blow up in their faces, because what's become so normal in pharmacy shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Oh, wow. Sorry, I'm catching up. Oh, absolutely, Kathy. There is a lot that they have to do. Oh, Ashley has a question.
Ashley needs a birthday.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with Emily here.
Yeah.
So oh, wow. That's, yeah. It's a little creepy when people like move in and then like the big truck shows up.
Yeah.
With a lot of new stuff. Like, that's always a little creepy. That's always a little creepy. Though I feel like I lost the first part of Emily's comment.
When he first took office, he moved into a house 2 houses down from their apartment when they lived in Charleston. There was a large amount of flat screen TVs and and this is early 2010s when flat screens were more expensive.
Yeah.
I just remember the oddities of big Best Buy truck pulling up in front and lots of stuff winning into the house.
Well, yeah, and it's like it's been this constant like Morrissey shakedown thing. Well, because none of the companies he sued have actually been penalized. They're paying pennies on thousands of dollars,
right,
in profitability.
And where it's going, and
it's not right, and it's not a slap on the wrist. Even it's like price of tea in China. Like no one cares. It's like one defect in a million. Like, oh, well, fine. Yeah. Okay. We'll admit that, or we won't admit anything, but yeah, we'll do better next time.
Well, and here's the bigger problem is this is who, Uh, this is who suffers. The ones that have continual conditions, the ones that has back pain, the ones that hurt constantly, the ones that have to have this medicine because it's what was prescribed and it's what works for them, that uses the prescription as it is, that have to sit there and page out their medicines, then pace out their medicines of, the doctor says I'm supposed to take this 3 times a day, but I'll only take it twice a day because it's so addictive, and I hurt and I hurt a lot, and it's like, and that's why, it was so much. This is the crap that makes it so hard for people to find doctors, so hard for people to find medicine refills. So, this is why, I tell my doctor I don't want any narcotics. I don't want any this, any that, any Schedule 2s, any Schedule 3s. You're going to keep me on the base, and we're going to formulate what works. And that may be a blood pressure medicine teamed up with a mild pain reliever, teamed up with a muscle relaxer, and then, we'll throw an antidepressant in there to break it.
Yep. Well, now, and then the thing with COVID especially that has gotten me, is, do you remember part of the advice in the beginning was like to keep an extra month's supply of medication on hand?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here going, who are these people?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me there's been a way for me to talk to my pharmacist or a tech or anyone and be like, oh, yeah, just go ahead and make that 2 months this time?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I show up 2 days early and they're looking at me like I'm trying to rob a bank.
Right.
That's not realistic. Like, where are you getting your meds? Who are you getting your meds? How are you getting your meds?
Right.
Like, to be able to do that, no one can do. Normal people cannot do that.
Right.
Like, that is a trip to Canada or Mexico. That's how you do that.
Well, trip to Mexico is starting to sound really good.
Oh, that's fine, Kathy. I am Techie Joe.
He doesn't do readings, Kathy. He's not psychic. Stays out of the industry. He knows. I don't fix computers anymore, and he don't do tarot readings.
Although I took your tarot class, and I wasn't half bad.
No, you've done very well in the tarot class.
But I am so not ready for prime time.
Exactly. But, and we'll take that in a minute. But no, and that always drives me freaking nuts. Still about a month's worth of medication. From where?
Right. From not taking it for a month?
Yep.
Like, samples? Does anyone's doctor still give them samples? No. Like, I remember that used to be a thing. And then all of a sudden it quit being a thing.
Right.
And now I'm just assuming it's all Pfizer and what is it? Eli Lilly handing out like Viagra and Cialis.
Right.
That's what I assume is happening. And the doctor, if they're male, is putting that in a bag and going, yeah, thanks. That's not going to anyone I know.
Right.
But me. But yeah. So, alrighty. So are we ready for Ashley?
Yeah, we're ready for Ashley. She wants to know, I'm going to go ahead and say the question because it's in parts. She wants to know, should she, she's getting rid of her ex. She finally filed for divorce. And I do mean finally. You should have filed a long time ago. But I wouldn't date anybody for at least 6 months.
And 9/27 of 1988. Sorry, just so we get the lawyers happy.
Yeah. And, with that, I think that you need a good 6 months of no men. Point blank. You need to recover. You need to get over some issues. You need to get yourself unprogrammed from dealing with an addict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and interrelating, sorry. Hopefully that was helpful information. But interrelating, and that's what you were kind of touching on earlier, and I did mean to talk about, is there is a huge difference that a lot of people and a lot of the medical community have struggled to understand the difference between chemical dependence and substance use disorder or addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are vastly different things.
Mm-hmm.
Chemical dependence is, no, you can't function without this. You have a legitimate medical issue here.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, this is life improving. You are chemically dependent only in that it allows you to continue to function in the best ways possible.
Right.
Addiction is when you move from that category of functional to non-functional.
Right.
Like when you're, not able to interact with society anymore, when you're not making good life choices, when you're losing jobs and you're falling asleep behind the wheel and you're making really risky choices.
Right.
That's more in the addiction category. Dependence is when instead of laying in bed, like speaking of pain, instead of laying in bed in pain, you're able to work and go to school or, play with your kids or your grandkids and live your life.
Oh, let's take it a step farther. Instead of laying in bed in pain, you're able to get up and take a shower. Because that's where some people are with, that's where they are. And Emily brings up that, hubby, the VA, #1 prescriber of opiates, by the way, for years had him on a lot. He quit the medicines. He preferred the pain over the side effects, which is great. But she brings up that he's looking into CBD oil. We've experimented with CBD oil to see if it done anything for me. Because CBD oil things, CBD oil products are in two different gambits there. It either works for you or it doesn't. But you got to find right CBD oil that is correct CBD oil that is actually CBD and not, we'll say it's CBD. What did we get? The gummies? We tried CBD gummies. I've tried oil. That didn't do crap.
Okay, guy, let's just go full disclosure. You picked up CBD gummies in an adult bookstore. Like, hello, let me explain the problems with that. Legitimately, is that I've noticed there are pharmacies starting to carry CBD products. We already know Crystal Lotus does or did.
Does.
Sorry, I've lost track there, and it's been a few months. But no. But going back to what Emily originally said, if I can talk, so let me guess, he was getting that like bodybuilder whey powder container, the insane one. Like, just to clarify for people, we're not talking about just like a couple hundred pills. Like, I've seen that one. I had a cousin that got that for his pain level. And honest to God, he kept it on his kitchen counter back in the day. And it looked like whey powder. Like he was trying to bulk up. And he's like, no, these are my pain meds. And it was just jaw-dropping. Like, you could kill like 20 people with the amount of pain meds they were sending. And I'm sitting here going, you're doing this for a veterans group, which is already at a high risk of suicide. You're doing this in lieu of what? Because that's a lot of pain meds. Like that is like the old nursing home equivalent of like over-medicate and knock them out. And then you don't have a care problem because everyone's basically in human storage. And it's like, that's what you're doing to our veterans? Like, you're putting them on ice, literally? Like, good God.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's saying, oh, yeah, huge bottles. I've seen them. They're scary amounts of pills. And high dosage at that.
Yeah.
Like the stuff he was on was stuff that I don't think you could go anywhere else and just have a doctor go there.
Right.
And it was like all he had to do was say that, yeah, my back hurts, which he did have a legitimate back issue. I'm not saying he didn't. He did. He had disability, and the back issue was very real. But it's like, that was it. That's all they did. Well, oh, you're on pain? Okay, here you go. And then suddenly these ginormous bottles at high dosages. Oh, wow. Yeah. And for extensive nerve damage, that's a lot for a lot of people to handle, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will say that in the beginning, when those problems are new, that is a lot. And I can so much more understand when people have new injuries. And again, if you're in the dependence category and you're functional and your life is okay, then your drugs are helping you. However, there are a lot of people that get stuck in the cycle of pain. And it's just more and more and more and more. And a lot of it shifts from being about functionality to keeping people high so they don't have to deal with it.
Yep.
And when I say deal with it, is life after injury, because it's a change. It's a big change. And it's more than physical pain. It's emotional pain.
Right. And here's the thing with it is, and because I deal with the back issues, I deal with the nerve damage. I don't have the lung problems because of smoking. It actually does well with it. Knee joints damaged. Is today's a good day, tomorrow's not. Today's a good day, tomorrow's not. And getting used to that wave, but also comparatively, I've basically had to tell my doctor, we're going to treat this like this is 1950. Don't bring me anything that wasn't approved before 1950. And he looks at me weirdly, but it's finding those combinations and going boom, 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 boom. Well, that's the same thing. Ashley, none of them.
Okay, I'm totally lost on that one.
Those are names that she claimed which to date, and I'm saying none of them.
Okay. Yeah. Already. But no, sorry to hear no disability from it yet. And I totally agree. A lot of our government-based healthcare is, and including the VA, especially the VA, and more problematically the VA, doesn't want to fix people. It wants to warehouse them at the lowest price possible. And a lot of what we see with Medicaid is in that same boat. Is, I think the biggest, I see problems with Medicaid. Like, do not ever get me wrong. I think Medicaid is a great and wonderful program. But I do see a problem is that if you get to a certain point of illness or injury, and it's not a very far point to go, Medicaid will not make the effort. They won't. They will not touch you. They'll be like, we'll approve pain meds, we'll approve like acupuncture and massage, and like we'll do a lot of comfort care. Right. It basically becomes, a giant hospice program.
Right. And see, the biggest thing that I've seen any relief from in 15 years is massage.
Oh, 2 years is quick, Kathy. For Social Security disability, that's quick. Anymore, I knew people that it took them almost a decade. That it was ridiculously problematic. The stops and starts and restarts and try again and get a lawyer and another lawyer and the next lawyer, and it's a nightmare.
I would suggest that he find a medical masseuse. Because he'll probably see a lot of relief in the nerve stuff. Definitely.
You know, I totally get that. Like that, and that's going to be the hardest part is trying to go, well, look at my employment. Like, tell me what else I did. Like, look at my life and tell me what else I did. Like, that's a cop-out. That is a total cop-out at that point for them.
Very much so.
No, it had nothing to do with that. Yeah.
But it's the same thing Agent Orange victims got handed.
Yeah. Well, and another hot topic for West Virginia, Black Lung, has been just as ugly of a program. Right. Some people, especially early on, got approved immediately. And then, like, my grandmother fought it, and they're like, no, there's no evidence. And it's like, hello? Like, look at his medical records. What makes you think any of this was normal? Like, no.
Well, and, you know, here's the bad thing is that, you know, minors today, they need to go for autopsy. Like, that's the only evident way to get them to be approved from black lung is after they've died from it. And go get an autopsy.
Even with the autopsy at that point, 1990, yeah, my grandmother tried to fight it, and they're like, never going to happen. And it's like really clear information. It's a no-brainer at that point. And they were still like, nope.
Yep.
But yeah. And again, Kathy, I'm so glad they got that approved for you. I really am. But I've known other people that it's one person, and I know we're running over, but I do know one person in particular that literally got told in her disability claim that given her health, that she could still work part-time in a convenience store with a stool and just no heavy lifting and no reaching above her head and like this long laundry list. And I'm like, okay, give her that job reference. Tell her where to go to work there. Like, where is this magical job you think she can do? And it took her another like 5 years from the original denial to get approved. It was ridiculous. But yeah, don't give up. Never give up.
Well, it's like with mine, they said, oh, you can still work. McDonald's is hiring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah. So, wow, really quick show, given that we had an author.
Really great show. Very nice show. Hope you guys enjoyed. We have another offer scheduled for next month. We'll be scheduling them as they do. Oh, wow. That is a lot, Emily. But yeah, so of course, we love to thank our Patreon sponsors. Thank you, Beverly Walker, as well as the Crystal Lotus Shop at 89 Old Main Plaza in St. Albans, West Virginia. Be sure to check them out. They're wonderful Patreon sponsors. And if you would like to become a Patreon sponsor yourself, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com. Yeah. And, you know, just to update some of the things over that we're doing on Patreon, you get my ASIN reviews a week early before they're released in public. There may be some articles that go over there first before they come out. And, you know, there's a lot of other ones that are other things, you know, a monthly dashboard for your webpage, for your cell phone from Joe. A lot of cool things there. Yes, once we get those uploaded. Yeah, they're uploading. Some things are uploading as they come. Some things are getting creative and going up. And, you know, there's different levels. And, of course, you get discounts off of House of ASIN, off my readings. All that's there so that we can give you guys better content. So we will be back Friday night with Mountain Bears, and we'll be talking a lot of news and topics going out. You know, we have the Democratic conference going on right now. We're waiting to see what all comes out of that. And, you know, just, you know, having a lot of fun. So you guys have a great night, and we'll see you later. Bye, y'all.
Good night. Bye-bye.